So when I came across today's guest, the story of Goldilocks just kind of popped into my mind. And if you remember, that's the story where like the little girl goes into the forest and she goes in someone's home and she finds 3 pots of porridge on the table and she's hungry. So she decides to taste the porridge. The first one is just a little bit too hot. So she tries the next one, it's a little bit too cold. And then the third is just right. Well, my guest today has kind of had a similar experience, not through breaking and entering into someone else's house, but testing the waters of a few different artistic styles before finding the one that is just right for her. So hello and welcome to Creativity Uncovered. My name is Abi Gatling and I'm on a journey to uncover how everyday people find inspiration, get inventive, and open their imagination. In this podcast, I find out how people use creative solutions at home, at work, at play, and everything in between. And my goal is that by the end of it, you'll be armed with a whole suite of tried and tested ways to summon creativity the next time that you need it. So today, I'd like to welcome our Goldilocks, Carol MacConnell.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I love that story, Goldilocks.
Yes, it is fitting. And you know, I was thinking about Goldilocks is that, you know, if she just happened to go to the third bowl first and it was just right, she'd still have question marks over the other two and probably would have tested them anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I would have had to go down this path. It is funny, but as an artist, you want to evolve. And I started as a realist and I was doing all different kinds of things. And another artist looked at my work and he said, "Oh, you're a landscape painter." And I thought, oh, okay. So I was a landscape painter for quite a while. And green and blue got boring. And so I did some colorful ones. But the bottom line is I wanted to move on. So I started doing figures. I did a lot of ladies on the beach and ballerinas. I was known for ballerinas for a while, and they were all realistic. And that was fun. I loved doing them. I'd still like to do figures, but abstractly. So that's next. But then I went into encaustics. I did those for a while. And encaustic, if anybody doesn't know, it's a combination of oil and wax that's heated and brushed on a stable surface like a cradled panel. And then it's hit with a blowtorch and sealed. It's kind of a wild thing. And I did that for a while, but I found that people didn't understand what it was, and they were afraid that their paintings were going to melt. And unless their house was on fire, their paintings were not going to melt. But it was just too big of an ask of people to understand. I was always explaining. So I guess from there, I only painted in oils for 20 years. So I probably started using oil sticks at that point, which I still love. But somewhere along, I was quite a snob about it. I thought, oh, acrylics. Now I'm 100% acrylics. I love them. I love mixed media. I love playing with that. At some point, I started doing mixed media and with acrylics because you can play around with pastels, you can play around with charcoal, graphite, collage, it just goes on and it's endless. So it's so fun. And I also forgot I did fluid acrylic paintings along with other work in recent years. And my fluid acrylic, it's not the kind where you mix them up and put the cup upside down and the paints pour. These are large fluid acrylics that were secured to their unstretched canvas. They were secured to large supports, and then painting is poured down them in a big way. And I don't do those anymore, but abstracts have totally fascinated me. I love doing them. I love studying with people who can teach me new things, new ways to think about it. I can't wait to get in here and paint and do another abstract. So it's really been a wonderful journey. But you're right. If I'd eaten the porridge at first, I wouldn't be an abstract artist now, because abstracts, everybody thinks they're easy, but to do a good abstract is something that I'm still searching for. I still love the challenge of the whole thing.
Yes, yes. So it sounds like, yeah, you've definitely been on this journey and evolving your style. Wait, let's jump back
Yes.
one quick second. How did you actually get into it in the first place, as starting as a realist? Because that
Yeah.
seems like, because you're a professional artist at that point, right?
Well, I have a degree in art, and then I worked in industry for quite a few years. I worked as an advertising manager for corporations, and so I would hire photographers and graphic artists and all that. So it was very creative, but I wasn't doing the creativity. Other people were doing it. And so at some point, I started job sharing. Well, I left that and went into television broadcast sales, like, commercials, Super Bowl kind of commercials, that kind of thing for the local stations here. And this was before now, where, back then there were like 5 stations. Now there's 300, 600, whatever. But anyway, I did that so I would have money freedom to pursue art. And then I started job sharing. And so 2 days a week, I went to my studio, and 3 days a week, I shared a job with another woman, and we both worked on Wednesdays so we could catch up. And I got a studio and started doing art. And that was about 20 some years ago. So I did that for 2 years, and then I went full time as an artist. So it's been a long journey. And because I felt like I needed to take baby steps when I got back into art, I started studying with a woman who started you at the basics. She had to start with charcoal, and you had to draw your hand. So that was pretty boring, but it's also, it gets you back into the flow. And from there, pastels and then oil. And I just loved oil. I did it for the longest time. But now I can't even imagine have solvents and all that kind of stuff. I love having, acrylic mediums to use and that kind of thing. But So I started back in basically with baby steps and realism. I thought I had to do realism. Yeah.
Wow. So when you transitioned it to be a full-time artist, I can imagine that when you are a full-time artist and you are using your art to make a living, changing your style or experimenting with something new could be a little nerve-wracking. Did that ever enter your mind?
Well, I've always been pretty prolific, so I create a lot of art. And I'm in a building with 200 other artists, and we're open once a month to the public. So I could fill my walls with different kinds of art. I could curate it myself and have, figurative on one wall, landscapes. So it really wasn't, because I could always just kind of flow it into the rest of the work, whatever was new. So no, I didn't really, I just plunged ahead. I never thought about maybe I shouldn't. My husband says, you should still do landscapes, because landscapes, everybody understands, not everybody understands abstracts. It's a much smaller pool of people who are seeking out abstracts, but it's a lot larger for landscapes. But you got to do what's in your heart. I can't paint because maybe that's easier to sell. That's just not, that would not be satisfying at all. So,
Yeah. So you don't feel like you at this point could go back and do some of those previous styles, like that was a part of your life that is now done?
it's done. Yeah. If I did a landscape at all, it would be an abstract landscape. It would not be what I used to do, which is realistic landscapes. I just can't do those anymore. And sometimes people want to commission me to do those, and I need to learn how to say no, because I don't enjoy doing them, and it's just all for the money, and I don't want to be that artist. So yeah, no, I can't go back there. Once you understand what your passion is, you can't just go back and say, okay, now I'm going to do, because I worked quite small then too. I mean, a big painting back then would be 24 by 36, and a big painting now is 72 by 72, 72 by 90. So, and those are in inches. I'm sorry, I forget we're in different countries.
We can do the conversions later. It's fine. They are big.
Big. Yes.
So I love the fact that you're so connected to your heart in this one, and that it's truly about what you like to do, and you don't want to stray from that. Is that what led you to try all these different styles, or is it kind of, you were doing it and there wasn't quite something right about it, and that's where you moved on?
Well, I think I would see other artists work, and I want to try things. I'd study with somebody, I'd admire an artist, and I'd want to study with them. But really, the work they were doing, it was not going to come out of my hands. It just, I could learn techniques and things, but I wasn't going to be that category of painter. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I always just knew when it was the right time to start something new. So it just has really evolved. And when you paint every day, I paint 6 days a week, so you really tune into what your heart wants. So,
yeah, that's such a metaphor. I mean, that's just fantastic advice for any career, really, is that, like we spend so much time at our work, then you really got to be doing something that you love. It's brilliant.
Right. Right.
So how did you get introduced to abstracts, and how did you settle on abstracts as your thing?
Picasso was a realist in the beginning. I just think you keep learning. That's the great thing about being an artist, is you never quit learning. So you keep learning, and you learn more and more, and you're exposed to more techniques and styles. And I think it's a natural progression to, a lot of artists later in their life became looser and had more freedom, really. And if they weren't abstract artists, they were definitely a looser version of themselves towards the end. So it's not something that I can't remember, but it is funny. I studied with some people. There's a woman in California, and I'm kind of impulsive, and she had a workshop going on, and she does very colorful, very stylized abstracts, but I didn't know anything about how to layer an abstract or do any of that. So she was going to have a workshop, but it was filled. And I called, it was like over the weekend. And then Monday of that weekend, I called her, the place where she was holding the workshop, and they had a cancellation. So I flew across the country to study with her. And because it was so stylized, it really, I didn't want to copy her paintings. She's already doing that. So I just wanted to learn how to do more. abstracts. And that was a good jumping off point, but I had a lot to learn since then. And I took more workshops, and I've studied recently with a woman named Kat Tesla, and she's in Florida here in the States. And I've flown down twice in the last year. She's an excellent teacher, and I just love what I produce down there. In 5 days, I would produce 7 to 8 canvases that the smallest is probably, oh, here I am again with the inches, but the smallest is probably 48 by 60. So that has really opened up my eyes, studying with her. When you can find a teacher that can actually teach and just not demo, it's really wonderful. So,
yeah. So was she the one who started you on that transition to do large scale paintings?
no, I was already doing them. Actually, 20 years ago, one of the first paintings I did when I got back into art was large. But I always loved painting large. I don't know what it is. I mean, I did small ones when I was representational, but I just love working large, and she does work very large. And so really the options for selling your work definitely goes in a new direction. You're working with interior designers, and you're working with art curators, and you're working with homeowners that have new homes that have, the volume ceilings and the huge walls and all of that. So, it definitely narrows your audience, but I'm okay with that. So
yeah, I love that the market is not driving what you're doing. I think that is such a cool, it's just wonderful to hear that.
yeah. Yes.
And there's something so amazingly epic about an oversized painting like that it's kind of takes your breath away almost.
Right. You can almost, it surrounds you. You kind of fall into it. I just love that.
Yeah, yeah. Whereas when you're looking at smaller paintings, I often find that I'm getting really close and I'm looking at the detail. Whereas
right.
the big ones, you are sort of forced to take a step back, and it's kind of like look at the bigger picture of life type of feeling when you're looking at these artworks.
Right. Yes. I love that.
Yeah. So you mentioned the last time we chat that you go through different focuses or themes when you're producing your art. Tell me about that. Like what would a theme be, and how do you choose it?
Sometimes I start creating and the theme comes as I'm creating. My last collection was called Driven to Abstraction, and it kind of because it was a large body of work, and it kind of was my breakthrough into this is what I'm really doing. These abstracts are working. And so it really talked about the fact that I was a realist and now I'm doing abstract. So it was called Driven to Abstraction. And they are all full of energy and layers and depth. And, that whole thing just really was fun to work on. So now I'm kind of thinking my next collection will be, I want it to be around water, and I want them to be calmer, and I still want them to have energy, but I don't want them to be as, I don't want to say frantic, but just kind of blowing up off of the canvas. I want a subtle, it just seems like the next stage should be subtle like that. So I'm starting a whole collection of quieter paintings. I'm also in a group show of 7 women this fall, and that one all deals with chalices and the female, like the divine feminine kind of thing. So it's I'll be producing 3 paintings there. They're going to be 36 by 60. I haven't produced them yet, but I have them in my brain how I want them to go. And I'll have 3 pieces in that show, all dealing with chalices.
Wow. Is it very different dealing with the theme that you set versus a theme that someone else sets for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. The divine feminine, I haven't played around with a lot of images like that. So it will be very different. I I've done a lot of research. I understand what I want to do. I love the shape of the chalice and the whole bit. And it'll be interesting because all of us will be doing our own take on the topic. So it'll be an interesting show. And that's in October. And I just ordered my canvas for those. So I'm waiting for those to come in. But the other, water, I just love having a focus that I can put on myself. And when I don't know what I want to do, then I do know, because I'm doing a whole series based on calmness and water. So, I love having a focus like that. And I love working on multiple canvases at once. And I love picking up canvases that I've already done and saying, I don't know, I'm reworking them. So I do that a lot too. But yeah, to have the subject dictated is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
You have to tune in later to see how those work out.
Yeah, do keep us posted. I would love to share that. So, how do you come up with these ideas for your focus? I totally understand that it's fantastic to have like a parameter to work within. I do that too. Whenever I like to be creative with my food, and I look and see whatever I have in the cupboard, and I love the parameter, but like, I've only got these 5 ingredients. What can I make with it? So I totally get that. But when I'm limited by what's in my cupboard, you're limited by the ideas that pop into your head. So how do you actually come up with these ideas?
I never have trouble thinking up ideas. The water thing, I'm not into all of the signs and everything, but I'm a Pisces, and that's a water sign. And so I resonate with the ocean and the waves and all of that. So it's an easy one for me to fall into. My palette has had a lot of blues on it, so that's also, but I really want to mix it up so it's not just all blues, I don't know. It's just, for me, it's easy to come up. And sometimes I come up with them and I abandon them because I get into them and it's like, this isn't working out the way I wanted it to. So I'm going to let that go and start something else. So, yeah.
Do you ever feel pressure to come up with a good idea like that, or pressure to produce your art because it is tied to your living?
I love to work under pressure. So you're asking the wrong person. I'm like a pressure cooker. That give me less time and I will get it done. I just have that kind of energy to work that way. So really, I love a deadline. I don't like when it's just all open-ended and I don't have to have things done. I like having a reason, and being open once a month to the public, that helps because I got to have my studio set up. I've got to have everything stretched. A lot of times on these large canvases, I work right on the wall. The canvas is tacked up to the wall, and then I stretch it on the stretcher boards afterwards. And sometimes, I can say, okay, I like this section, so I'm going to make this the whole painting. And sometimes I say, I like the whole thing, so I'm going to make it that size. But anyway, that was a tangent. Sorry, I got off on.
I think the idea that you like to work under pressure just really does point back to the fact that you give yourself these little focuses or themes to work within. It makes sense. Yeah.
Right. I love that.
Yeah. So where do you get your energy from to be able to paint 6 days a week?
Oh, I had somebody once describe me as having hummingbird energy. I'm always, ooh, And I think it can aggravate some people that I'm always raring to go. I don't know. My husband laughs because I wake up. My favorite day of the week is Monday because I get to come back to the studio. I just love being here. It's just there's nothing like walking into your studio and, painting 6 days a week. I mean, I also do business stuff. I got to update websites and take photos and apply to shows and all that kind of stuff. So I do that in here also, but I definitely it just gets me going to walk into my studio.
So we have a couple of people who've sort of written in and want to know different ways to work through a creative block. Do you ever get a creative block, and do you have any tips or tricks for working through a creative block?
A lot of times when I have a creative block, I will turn the painting upside down, work on it upside down. Or turn it sideways, or I will take the strangest color and start painting it on there, and just do something to make it outside of trying to make it work. I just try to mix it up. Just don't try to keep beating the dead horse. If the painting really isn't working, I'll paint over it. I love to paint on top of old paintings because you can leave little evidence of it poking through. I just love that. So, but if it's a huge creative block, I'll work on something else. If it's on one painting I can't seem to solve, I also use some tricks on my phone. I'll take a picture of it and crop it down to size, and then I use I think it's called, what is it called? I'm going to bend down so I can get that. It's called Procreate, and there's a pocket one I have on my phone. It's for phones. There's also one that you can work on your computer. But I drop the painting in there, and I can actually use brushes, spray paint, whatever, and paint right on it. I can use colors, different colors, and I can just try things that I want to try, and without messing up the canvas. And almost every night I take a photo before I leave, and I'll go home and look at it and think about it overnight. So when I get in there, and a lot of times I walk in the morning and it looks all different than I remembered anyway. So yeah, I think you just got to push through it,
Yeah. I love the idea of turning the painting around just to get another perspective. It's
right.
It's brilliant.
Yes, I do that all the time. If I get stuck, I just turn it, and I'll turn a painting, 5 or 6 times while I'm working on it. And then at the end, hopefully it can go horizontal or vertical, because I've painted it without determining this is the horizon, so you have a lot more options as far as which way you want to show the painting. So
yeah. I was going to say that turning the painting works better for abstracts than it would for landscapes.
Yes, but you know what? It's a great way to see mistakes when you're doing figurative. If you turn the painting upside down, turn your source up, your photograph upside down, and you kind of step back until the canvas is the same size as your photograph, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you just glance side by side, and you're like, oh, look, that line is totally wrong. And this, you can just see it. So I just do that. I used to do that a lot to see errors. They jump out at you when it's upside down.
Yeah. I guess you're focusing more on the shapes rather than the actual thing that you're painting. So it doesn't look like a body anymore. It's just a series of shapes. That's a great tip.
That's the best way to learn how to draw is forget you're drawing a hand. You just draw the space that's in between the fingers. So you study that instead of saying, oh, I'm drawing a hand, and you draw a cartoon hand, So I think drawing is all about relationships, measuring. And, once you start realizing that and quit calling it a nose, an eye, an ear, whatever, even, um, architecture, any of that, when you quit naming it and you just start looking, yeah, I wrote a chapter about that, seeing like an artist, in a book that I was published in called, what was it called? Oh, the Creative Life book. But anyway, my chapter was on, there's a point where for me, I all of a sudden could see differently. I could see colors differently. I could see how to mix them looking outside. I don't know, all of that. All of a sudden you start seeing like an artist. So it's like magic.
Oh, wonderful. Oh my gosh, fantastic tips. And I'll link the book so people can have a read of it and see your chapter there. That'd be super interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me today, Kara.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so glad we got to connect. And I just am honored to be here. Thank you.
It's wonderful having these conversations from across the globe. Just
Yes.
talking previously how I'm freezing where I am and you are
I am
37
burning up.
degrees Celsius. But united by creativity. I love it. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in to Creativity Uncovered today. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. I know that I have. If you know of anyone who may be interested in this episode, please do share it around. And if you have the time, jump on and give us a rating or review to help more people find the podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, take care. If you've made it this far, a huge thank you for your support and tuning into today's episode. Creativity Uncovered has been lovingly recorded on the land of the Cubby Cubby people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. This podcast has been produced by my amazing team here at Crisp Communications, and the music you just heard was composed by James Gatling. If you liked this episode, please do share it around and help us on our mission to unlock more creativity in this world. You can also hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episode releases.